We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous. Now, we must be ready for a new danger.
Iran!
That's why these children are practicing to duck and cover, just as you do in your school.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Human Reaction. We are here, Joe and Bennett remotely, here to talk about Iran.
Iran. Like a Chinese person saying Elon. Iran.
It's just funny because we keep on getting wars in places we can't pronounce the names. No. Like Qatar. Right?
Ukraine
We're
was
not
easy,
in war
though.
there. Ukraine, but then there's a whole Kiev
that's
thing.
true.
Remember?
We had Kiev. Who fucking knows?
I don't know.
Not to mention the rest of the provinces. God, that was crazy.
I live in America. I don't want to have to care about this. Stop making me learn new words. I already have the trade language of the world. We already dominate the world. Everyone needs to learn my language. I shouldn't have to learn your pathetic regional dialects.
Hot take, folks. Hot take from David Ram.
If we could only just stop invading these countries, I wouldn't have to be burdened by this. Thanks, military-industrial complex. All right. So that's my real beef. That's actually the beef.
You seem a little salty about that, David. Would you say you're staying salty?
I am staying salty.
Thanks to our friends at Element, we are staying salty over your regional dialects. Cheers.
I just can't get these words sometimes. Yeah, I say Iran. Yeah, all good. Iran. Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
That's good. That was good. That was great.
All right. So what happened? We have an anonymous source from the White House claims to Politico that, well, the politics are a lot better if Israel strikes Iran first. This is a very concerning moment because I feel like I'm in well, we've said it before, and every time we put it on a video, we get demonetized, so we're not going to do it this time. Groundhog Day. It's just Groundhog Day. Every day I wake up and Israel's about to get Iran's about to get a nuclear weapon, and Israel's going to strike them and draw us into a war again. Every day.
Yeah.
It just keeps happening.
Yeah.
Why?
That needs to go on the stream deck immediately.
Why? Why does this have to be what it is?
Well, I think it's because there are foreign interests that have very high degrees of influence over the U.S. government, and it would benefit them if we would do such things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we find ourselves.
I mean, look, this is, it depends on whether or not you believe Politico, this story.
Sure.
Right? The Politico story, you use a completely anonymous sources. This too. And the question is, do you trust these two reporters, Leo, Shane, and Jake? Try that one out. Sekuladaris. Yeah, contributed to this report. So, yeah, I don't know. But if it is true, this is true, right? It would be a casus belli is a lot easier when you're attacked or an ally's attacked. It's a lot harder to play the role of aggressor in a republic because popular opinion does matter. And this war is already unpopular.
Yeah.
So you might be able to make it popular if you can get attacked, tempt the other person into attack. Although, interestingly, last time, in this Groundhog Day scenario that we are living through again, last time we were in the middle of a discussion with them, a negotiation, and Israel attacked Iran in the middle of that.
True.
And we largely said, Trump and Israel are tied at the hip on this. I just can't believe they did it without his approval. And then there was reporting on both sides of that. I personally believe the reporting that suggests that they definitely worked together to make this happen. And he kind of took credit for that too. So therefore, I'm pretty skeptical of the opposition.
Totally. So you think that there is a lot of truth to this statement from Politico, this reporting from the White House that says that if Israel strikes Iran first, it would give Trump the sort of political cover publicly amongst public opinion in order to enter into that war also.
Right.
Because it's happened before.
Yeah, it's happened before. And they largely got away with it with the 10-day war or 12-day war. Sorry, I took 2 days away.
How dare you?
How dare you?
And of course, the White House denies it. Anna Kelly from the White House spokesperson said, the media can speculate, whatever, but President Trump knows what he's going to decide. Only he knows what he's going to do. And of course, the Israelis.
That I believe.
Now, the question is, why are we here again? And this is, and obviously, if you've been looking around the internet, there's a lot of speculation about this whole Iran thing. I did want to start at the beginning and just what is happening in terms of, we have this, Venezuela happened, and they literally okay, go to the other side of the planet and do another war now.
Yeah.
I know people don't consider that a war. I think it is a war. If you invade another country, that's an act of war. And we're going to return to the whole using language thing later, because we're seeing a lot of this right now in the propaganda, where wars are not wars and peace is war, and wars, all the manipulations 1984 are happening.
Yeah.
As we speak.
Yeah. The inversions of language.
Yeah. Happening. So what we have is a buildup that has been building up since Venezuela. Venezuela happens, all these resources get shifted over to the Middle East. Witkoff and Kushner are doing an indirect mediated nuclear negotiation in Geneva with the Iranians.
And what does indirect mean? They're negotiating with someone who's talking on Iran's behalf?
No, they have a mediator between Iran and them. So they don't ever meet in the same room. They tell the foreign minister of Oman, who then goes to them and then tells Iran. It's kind of like, have you ever seen Harry Potter when Ron and Harry are fighting, or they're mad at each other, right? And then they send Hermione to be the middle person to say,
and she's not an owl.
Yeah, she's not an owl. It's kind of like that. But the minister of Oman, he's totally cool with this. He's like, yeah. But
so he's happy being the messenger, basically.
But why?
Was my example too nerdy?
No.
What don't you understand about that?
No, I get it. Does the minister of Oman just really love Harry Potter and he's super down?
That's it. That's right. He wants to be Hermione.
Okay.
No, I mean, honestly, Oman has every interest to try to keep war from happening. And I think that's what people naturally... Okay, so this is the biggest buildup since 2002, right?
Okay, so they're having this mediated conversation to try to avoid war.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we'll get into in a minute about what the status of the negotiation is, kind of what the terms are. Yeah. But the U.S. demands are, broadly speaking, is they need to, and this is the challenge of this, is because it could sound reasonable as long as you don't ever think about what the other side thinks about what you're asking. So kind of like in business, right? If I put my price too high, you're like, did you ever even think that other people had to buy this? You know what I mean? As the buyer, you're like, that's way too expensive. Who's going to buy that for that price, right?
Sure.
Basically, what the U.S. is saying is that it's a very high price at the threat of a war. One, Iran needs to completely change how they do nuclear power so they can't enrich it themselves. This would effectively remove their only deterrent, which isn't an actual deterrent, right? Their deterrent has always been a latent nuclear threat. So in the event of a catastrophic threat to the regime, they could try to sprint to develop a nuclear weapon and potentially have something to do damage by attaching it to one of their regional missiles.
Sure.
Second, they need to somehow, and I don't know how you do this. This is kind of insane. This next item is reduce or eliminate their regional ballistic missile program. So right now they have ballistic missiles that can effectively reach some parts of Europe and almost all of the Middle East. There's I think they can. I don't know if they could actually reach the southern tips of the Arabian Peninsula, but pretty much the main area of the Middle East, including all of Israel, they can hit.
Sure. But
you're effectively asking them just to completely disarm themselves functionally,
right,
from modern warfare at that point.
Right.
And then another one I actually think seems attainable, but it's pretty still it's a pretty heavy ask, is somehow get them not to have a spy agency or fund non-traditional forces, aka terrorism. Right. Gotcha. So they would say non-traditional forces. What we do when we do this thing is we fund radicals all over the world all the time. We do this. We did fund the Mujahideen. We fund people who, given the Chinese a hard time with the Uyghur population. Mm-hmm. We do this all the time, but they do it to guys that we really don't like, Hezbollah and Hamas and places like that.
Gotcha.
So those are the three items that they're asking for.
And so with your business analogy of the price being too high, you're basically saying these negotiating terms are just not anything that Iran could actually ever accept. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, they would have to substantially scale back from the initial claim, right? And you can understand, it's like the Trumpian thing. You ask real big and you settle somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
right?
It's anchoring, right? You anchor the negotiation high so you land somewhere that's acceptable.
Right.
Yeah.
The challenge is in politics, that's a tougher thing to do than in business, right? Because we frame politics in emergencies and moralism, right? We say it's an evil regime, and like now you're going to compromise with evil, like unlike business is like you don't say that's an evil price, like that's morally wrong to do. And once you do that, the negotiation's functionally over, right? I mean, it's difficult to come back from that. But in the forever game of global powers that persist ad infinitum forever, in theory. You got to continue to play.
Right.
So you're on the same planet and it's only so big and we're the hyperpower.
Right.
So what do you do? Well, I mean, that's where we classically say things like diplomatic language really matters. Right. But the administration has been very weak on diplomatic language. They've been setting very high goals and then failing to be able to back down from them. And that is what caused war last year. And that's what might cause it again.
When you say they're weak on diplomatic language, you mean they're being really overt and like really hyperbolic about the Iranian regime, not trying to soft play this or couch their intentions in language that wouldn't overtly just piss them off.
Well, they kind of put themselves in a pickle by claiming having a latent nuclear capability is the same as having nuclear weapons.
Right.
Right. And not being able to distinguish between the two. Getting out of the JCPOA because it didn't solve things that weren't nuclear has resulted in a situation where we have nuclear as a problem and a lot of other things.
Gotcha.
Then we go bomb them and we say the nuclear threat's gone. And now we're back again because they're trying again due to some intelligence that who knows where it came from or what it is.
Right.
The White House is asking us to trust them to the same degree Politico is here. Right. And like, why? Politico is going to lie to me. I know it. I'm confident of it. I goddamn well know that the government's going to lie to me, right? I mean, am I born yesterday? What is this? So yeah, we'll get around with some more of that as we get into the reaction content. Now, the other part of this is just the sheer scale of it. So I said it was the biggest since 2002. Iraq War II, really. What we're talking about is more than 150 aircraft in just not even on the nearby bases, just on the carriers. So we have 2 carrier strike groups. A carrier strike group, I had to look this up, so don't feel bad if you don't know. Cool military stuff. It is cool.
It is.
One carrier strike group contains about 70 aircraft, about 5,000 soldiers, about 2 cruisers, 1 or 2, or 2 or 3 destroyers, a supply ship, and the submarines. We don't know if the submarines are there or not. That's the cool thing about fucking submarines. Right? Like,
you just don't know if they're there.
Real stealth shit, But anyway, so that's we have these 2 ships and their associated ships in that battle group. So that's part of the pressure campaign. We also have this interesting story from Reuters about the CIA launches fresh social media push to recruit Iranians as Trump threatens military action. Woo-hoo.
Oh.
So basically what happened is they put out a tweet in Farsi and they're like, wow, can you believe this incredible action, this innovative work from... Okay, so the context here...
You backed off that quick.
The context, well, I don't want to get murdered, but no, I'm kidding. The context here that's missing, it's not in the article, it really frustrates me.
Yeah.
Right. Is a couple weeks ago, there was some protests that happened, right, in Iran. Now, those protests come from the sanctioned regime. Now, what we did is we said, we didn't just sanction Iran saying, we will not do business with you. We sanctioned anyone who does business with Iran.
So basically, it's like nearly a blockade of commerce.
Yes. It's like, think of that moment in like a medieval fantasy like situation where you have your castle and you're completely surrounded by the enemy and you're completely cut off and everyone's starving inside. That's what we're doing to Iran.
And so the people were protesting because they were starving.
Well, I mean, how many people are actually starving? I don't know. It's kind of a black box. You read reports and you kind of hope they're right, but the likelihood that you find anything coming out of Iran that's not NED connected or IRI connected is
National
really
Endowment
hard.
for Democracy International Republican Institute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey, you got your spice down.
The Democrat and Republican wings of the NGO dark money CIA sphere.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at this just keep that with a grain of salt. So those protests happens. It has a lot to do with the way they're managing the national budget in this crisis of money. They don't have enough dollars to buy stuff internationally. They can't get any dollars. They're completely kicked out of SWIFT, so they can't do regular banking. There's so many challenges that they have real economic challenges, right? Mm-hmm. So these protests happen, and then all of a sudden, and this is according to reports. Once again, it's hard to say who's IRI, NED, what's a real report that's just propaganda from the Iranian regime or from some allied regime. But it gets very violent. Now, the violence really goes two ways. The focus from the NED crowd are all Iranian government killing protesters. The other resources will tell you that there is people on both sides shooting and that there appears to be kind of a color revolution. It looks very similar to other color revolutions, although they had never picked a color. So, maybe they learned a lesson about that. We're tracking the whole, when we pick an arbitrary color and call the revolution the green revolution, or the brown revolution, the orange revolution, that's up for some, eventually people pick up that's an intelligence plot.
Yeah. I actually never knew that it was literally about colors.
Oh, a lot of these have colors. I'm not going to.
I mean, when you say that, I'm like, oh, that makes total sense.
That
but
name
I never put that
exists
together.
because people just noticed the pattern, like, what's going on here? And then, like Maidan was what did they call it? Was it the orange? And then they changed it to the Revolution of Dignity and like a bunch of other stuff having to do with EU trade deals and Russian trade deals and shit. And they're calling it the Revolution of Dignity. Anyways. Yeah, but that branding, right? It's a branding question. So they never really pick up a brand per se that I ever caught. But what you see is that, and then, there's this huge outcry. They killed 30,000 people. Some reports, once again, keep these with a grain of salt, were like 60,000. Very convenient number because that would be the same amount as the people who died in Gaza.
Oh.
Right. So then it kind of filters that out. You could see the marketing play there.
So are they saying that's a high and unacceptable amount?
Fair point, Bennett.
Yeah,
is that what they're trying to say?
Yeah, well, you're just over here saying and some of them.
I'm just noticing things.
Yeah. Some he's just noticing patterns. There is it's just a marketing trick, right? If you just bring up another number close enough to it sufficiently in the intuitive part of the brain, not the practical part of the brain, not your reason, in the emotional side of your brain, then you're like, oh, that's a lot. Well, I mean, it's obviously that's how much they killed of their own people. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. You just distill it down.
Yeah.
And so now that's become one of the reasons to invade Iran is because in these protests, a bunch of people died. And there is video evidence of this, and you get these long rows of people in hospitals that have been shot.
Yeah.
So,
and this is actually, has historical precedent, right? I mean, Bashar al-Assad is gassing his own people.
Yes.
Saddam Hussein was gassing his own people. Like, if they can say, oh, the Khomeini regime is killing all of its own people, then we can go in and take them out.
Well, classic humanitarian. Yeah.
Gaddafi.
Yeah. Gaddafi. And then in Syria, it was the same thing. Yeah. In Syria. You're right. And that was the backpack that smells like anthrax or whatever it was.
It smells like chemicals. Because it's made of plastic, okay?
Left out in the sun in the Middle East.
Smells like a hot inner tube on the river.
Oh, man, that sounds refreshing.
Like the inside of a tire shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway, so that's great reporting on that one. If you get that reference, we've showed that clip a couple times.
We have showed that,
yeah. So if you're new here, go back and check our Syrian coverage on that one. But yeah, you're right. It's this theater, this atrocity theater that then causes a response from the U.S. government. Now, the classic one, the one that did probably the most amount of damage, is in Iraq War I with the babies in the incubators. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And that atrocity propaganda, then, the Iraqi military, for purposes of just because they're evil, crosses into Kuwait, goes into the hospitals, take babies out of the incubators to steal the incubators.
Because they are hatching chickens.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny about that? That's the exact Groundhog Day moment again. That's the exact same crap that they said in World War I against the Kaiser.
Oh, interesting.
They said the soldiers went into Belgium and were bayoneting babies in their cribs, right? And it's just it's obvious propaganda. We should know better. More people should watch this program so that we can kind of get more people to understand how obvious this stuff is at this point. All right. And another part of the buildup is that does cynical.
Hold on. Actually, I just realized I wanted to circle back to what the tweet said in Farsi. You cut off right before it. Oh. You didn't actually say what the CIA said to the Iranians to try to recruit them.
Yeah. Where is it here? I'll find it real quick. It's can you see it better than I can, Joe?
Doubt it.
Basically, what the Farsi tweet says is, hey, if you would like to overthrow your government, ring me up, bro. Drop into my DMs on Tor Network. There you go. CIA posted in a Farsi language message on Tuesday, X, Instagram, and Telegram.
Hold on.
Imagine you're in Iran and you follow the CIA on X.
Okay, so the CIA posted its Farsi language message on Tuesday on its X, Instagram, Facebook, Telegram, and YouTube accounts. The message is the latest in a series by the CIA aimed at enlisting sources in Iran, China, North Korea, and Russia. The agency urged Iranians wishing to make contact to, quote, take appropriate action to protect themselves before doing so and avoid using work computers or their phones. Okay, so they're just trying to recruit people to, inform on the regime or activities within the country, et cetera.
Yes, sorry. That's in the context of these protests I'm talking about.
Gotcha.
Right. Okay. And so in the context of the protest, this goes out. Now, we already know. So the suggestion is that the people who were shooting the police in Iran were probably a color revolution, meaning that they were recruited by Israel and the CIA.
Agent provocateurs or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that and the fact that they're putting it out on their public Facebook, what is that? Like, that's a strange one. I think that probably has more to do to send a signal to those governments that they're doing that. I mean, come on. The CIA has to have people on the ground in those countries recruiting people with human intelligence, right? Like, we're not leaving this to AI right now, are we? We're not just like automated AI posts. Like Claudebot on the CIA is just posting like, hey guys, don't forget to reach out anytime you want to overthrow your government. Right? Is that where we're at?
Next, I can generate a plan of how to control a block of a city. Just tell me where you want to go next. No, I could see this. Actually sort of being like, an interesting feint, if you will, where it's like the CIA is obviously operating in Iran. They obviously have to already have assets in the country.
Yeah.
But it's like they're putting it out almost to the public, like our public perhaps, to make it seem like, oh, we're not instigating anything over here. We're like calling out the public, hey, we need sources. Come help us. We're trying to help you innocent Iranians here. Right. Meanwhile, they're over here like, instigating a lot of the violence. I could see that being true.
Rewind this back. So if you look at Mike Benz's work on Diplomacy 2.0 and what he's been able to bring to the public when it comes to the shift in the way that the blob, the intelligence architecture, has done spy work since pretty much the Arab Spring. So if you remember this, back in the day, there was this thing called the Arab Spring where a bunch of people suddenly overthrew the government of Egypt and started protesting all over North Africa and the Middle East. This resulted in the very long and very bloody and very terrible Syrian civil war in Libya and all these other places. In that moment, when that was happening, the intelligence apparatus said, hey, what if we took advantage of these tools, these internet tools that people are using to organize, and use them to make this bigger? So they go to Twitter and they go to Facebook and they go to these places like, hey, can you boost these in these countries and get it more visible and have preference for these accounts? That's the foundational, that's that first cornerstone brick of the censorship industrial complex, is that, right? So we already know that capability exists. So when they put out this is cover.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because we already know they have this capability to recruit digitally online. They're already doing it. In fact, that's what all these color revolutions were the Arab Spring.
This is almost their way of saying, we don't do this. We don't know how to do this. So we're just going to put it out on our Facebook page.
Right.
Yeah. Everything's computer.
We don't know technology. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that's what's going on. That's the Reuters. And then you just imagine them being like, hey, Reuters, check out this cool post. And like, oh, I'll write a whole freaking article about it and like give the CIA cover. Anyways, so what else happened when I was getting to was that the U.S. has evacuated Beirut. See? Beirut. I know it's Beirut, but I read it as Beirut.
That's right.
I'm American.
That's right. All right. That's right.
All right. So another part of this that is interesting, and when you kind of look at the temperature rising, is this whole signaling that kind of happened. The first story is about China. China provided Iran with targeting information. I didn't get a link for this because it was hard to find one that, none of it was confirmed, but it was all kind of like leaked out, anonymous sources, sorts of reporting that basically laid out a case that, okay, so back a little while ago, when they were shooting rockets between Israel and Iran at each other, they're flying over all this territory. there might have been an error with Iran's GPS. It might have been because they were using American technology for that GPS. And so Iran is now shifting to Chinese GPS, global positioning tracking software. Mm-hmm. So they don't run into that problem again.
Okay, so when you say there might have been an error because they were using American GPS, you mean like the Americans like changed it so that the rockets went somewhere other than their intended target?
They just didn't hit what they thought they should hit, and they're blaming the software. That's what I read. So it might be that. It might be something else. And this is just underlying software purchased by like technology that is like the root technology that just says in the telemetry, here's where it should be, right? And if that was manipulated by a backdoor, you could see an agency that first starts with N and ends in an A might do. That's kind of what we hired them for.
NASA.
Yeah, that's right. NASA.
See, I was going with the NSA, and then I was like, that can't be right.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, a very secret agency.
Fascinating. So they're switching to Chinese tech because they trust it more. I imagine they're much more closely allied with China than they are with the country that's literally blockading their country from all commerce.
Yes. And additionally to that, there was a report that China gave them new targeting information for our positions across the Middle East.
Interesting. Yeah, I did see somehow, and I don't know if it was real, but I did see what I thought was some Chinese satellite imagery of maybe some different U.S. bases and things, assets that we have in the area.
Yeah, it's kind of the pattern. What I'm doing here is trying to summarize like a pattern match that I saw across about 3 days.
Yeah,
where all this Chinese-Iran collaboration stuff was happening. And once again, going back after I saw that, I was like, yeah, but I got to talk about the Epstein files. And coming back around to it, I wasn't able to confirm anything that solidly. So I'm just saying, grain of salt with that. That could be an op to make China look bad in their war we're about to set up with Iran. I don't know.
Yeah.
It might have been totally benign things too. Like they just updated their global positioning tracking software and we made a big deal out of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And the other part of that, and this is real and confirmed, and this is, it was that Russia conducted joint naval drills in the Strait of Hormuz, which is like the big strait by the Arabian Peninsula that Iran has a lot of influence over for oil shipments coming out of that area. Now, this would also affect a lot of other neighbors in that space, people that are friendly with Iran and with us, because they're also Shiites or Shiite Sunni split, and they need to be like that. And that's one of the interesting things, too, that we still haven't got to as a society is we don't really talk about what the consequences of potential war are because of the ethnic splits in the area. But those folks, they move all that through the area. So Russia came down and was like, hey, let's do a team practice right before the big game.
Scrimmage.
Right? So people naturally said,
shirts and skins.
That's not good. And then part of this, and this was an interesting one, this report from the New York Post is that, quote, Iran covertly repositioned strike drones amid Russia drills in Strait of Hormuz. Interesting. Yeah.
Interesting.
So basically they use the joint military drill to reposition some of their strike drones.
As in move them further away from, the potential of being attacked by the U.S. and Israel? Or, I mean, what was the intention, do you think, or do you know, behind the repositioning?
My understanding is just the strategy that if you don't know where they are, if you keep them on the move, and if you can disguise their movements so you lose track of them, then it's harder to take them out so that you can do your infiltration and do a quick in and out bombing campaign.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the shell game.
Right.
Keep swapping them around.
That's right. That's right.
It.
Yeah. So that's what's happening. That's the process. Now, what are the reactions? What is happening? How are we dealing with this, and how we can get some more context here is from looking at the big influencers in this space. We have the Vice President, J.D. Vance, getting an important question. Actually, Joe, I'm going to keep this small, and if you read this out, it'll actually make people hear what the reporter's saying because she's kind of quiet.
Okay, sounds good. So the reporter, Caitlin Collins, I assume? Yeah. Caitlin Collins says, can you explain to the American people why the U.S. would need to strike Iran to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon if the U.S., quote, obliterated their enrichment program last summer? And J.D. Vance's answer here.
Well, I'm not going to make any news on Iran today, Caitlin. I'll let the president make those announcements. As you know, he is sending 2 of his best negotiators to Geneva tomorrow, in order to continue to try to strike the best deal possible for the American people. But the principle is very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they try to rebuild a nuclear weapon, that causes problems for us. And in fact, we've seen evidence that they have tried to do exactly that. So the president sending those negotiators to try to address that problem, as the president has said repeatedly, he wants to address that problem diplomatically, but of course the president has other options as well.
Yeah.
Is that Dr. Oz in the background?
Is that who that is?
I don't know. It just
Kind of looks like
it
him.
kind of looks like him.
Yeah, didn't he join the administration?
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they were talking about other things.
They were
but-
probably talking about other things.
Yeah,
Just to go.
I'm pretty sure that's him.
Yeah,
Anyway,
look at that. Look at
okay.
that smile. Look at that guy.
He's he seems very confident. He's like, this war is going to go great.
Health.
As a former television doctor, I know everything about war with Iran.
Yeah. So what he claims there is it'd be bad if they got a nuke, and that's why we're here. And the reason why we're attacking, and this is a thread that's going to happen again, so please bear with me on this because there is a payoff, is this idea that they're building it again. And he says we have seen evidence of that. My question is, when we invaded Iraq, you gave us the evidence. You went before the UN and you gave the public, the global world, the evidence. And the reason why wasn't because the George Bush administration were just a bunch of hippy dippies who loved the UN. It's because if you at all, I mean, there's two reasons. One, the support for the war matters, right? If people support it because you've made a clear case and you're very clearly saying, no, this is a threat to the global order, then you might be able to persist in it and actually execute it to get what you want out of it. So like in respect, as our founders have put it, in respect for the opinion of humanity, here is why we're doing what we're doing. And here's the evidence. Now that evidence turned out to be bullshit because it was provided by a series of people connected to a very particular country that also wanted to lie us into that war alongside the neocon faction of the American foreign policy establishment that also wanted that war.
Is it the same one that says they're 5 minutes from having nuclear weapons every 4 years? Ish?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
It's that one.
Yeah. Can't say that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can. But
Have you
we're not
seen our
gonna.
views lately, Joe?
Oh, just a bunch of shadow goys over here. Just sounding off into the goy void.
good times. Though.
Yes. But staying hydrated. Thanks to our friends at Element.
And it's not just that. I mean, there are other parts of that too. Like there's rules from other countries that can get overemphasized. I'm not trying to make an all-encompassing statement with that. My point is that we don't know where this information is. We would love to have this information. Second, if it required the CIA or some intelligence asset to get us that information, revealing it to the public would put that asset in danger. Then before a war, we should before we start the war, we should probably do something about that and like get that person out of danger. If it's a method that we can't that we don't want to repeat in the future, well, maybe it's not worth it to do the war if we can't repeat it again in the future. It just indicates that the war is not valuable enough to get rid of that method or put that method at stake in the future. It's a case. I will make that case. I hope someone will debate me about it. Because I think when you look at the potential downside of this war, which is substantial, what method is worth that, right? It could be, but it's hard for me to imagine. And the third to that, that's all my case for like public disclosure, where like the American public gets to understand why you think they're building these weapons. And the third one is if you can't do that at all and you're so obsessed with keeping everything classified, and this is the absolute like, you know, it's hard for me to imagine, but like putting a steel man on it, we use secret stolen alien technology to discover that they are indeed, or we actually can predict the future with remote viewing and we know this is going to happen in 12 days. You know, something like that. You know, it's most sci-fi crazy shit that doesn't seem possible. Can you at least tell Congress how you found out? You know, like
right.
the
Take somebody into a skiff, say something, and then have someone that the people might trust come out and say, they gave me reasonable. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking about. They gave me reasonable, you know, evidence that they're actually citing.
Well, and then put it for a vote.
Yes,
right? I mean, that's
please.
your actual test, right?
Yeah.
Even if you got to bring all of Congress into skiffs, show them the evidence, and then request a war powers resolution an authorization for use of military force, which could be worded as such to say, in the result, if they fail to get a deal for nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles and funding terrorism, if they fail to do that after this many days, the president has the authorization to use military force in Iran from X to Z.
Yeah.
Right? That's how they should be structured, right? Rather than just in Iran forever and ever, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, this is probably answering my own question here, but it seems like within Congress, they could probably do that. Like, there's probably enough support for a conflict with Iran amongst congressional members. So why don't they?
I was wondering about that, right? Because I don't know where the Democrats are on this. I wasn't seeing it, but then the State of the Union happens.
Yeah.
And he's talking about Iran and
and both sides of the aisle stood up.
Yeah, there
for
were
the
a
idea
couple that remained sitting, right, from the Democrat side, more than the Republicans, which is almost universal. Disappointing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that persuaded me. Like, why not at that point?
Right. At least just do it the formal way. But I think
the legal way. At least do it the way that the Constitution requires.
Exactly.
You know?
Do it the way it's supposed to be done. But the reason why not?
Yeah.
Could it be that members of Congress don't want to put their names on the record as saying I voted for this war? Because then someday down the road, when this war becomes Afghanistan 2.0, and it's been 20 years and trillions of dollars and millions of lives, they have to say, yes, I voted for that war.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's right. So that's probably the core reason why it's not going to get voted, because Congress doesn't want to vote on it. You're right. And that's
Cowards.
depressing.
Cowards.
Just vote on it. Just buck up, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this, J.D. Vance makes the claim that Wickoff is a great negotiator. I wanted to assess that real quick with a recent interview that he gave about how awesome, and this gets to my whole bad at diplomatic language thing. Just watch that.
He gave Jared and I direction before we went over there. There were red lines. Zero enrichment. We have to have the material back. They say that it's all about their civil program, and yet they've been enriching well beyond the number that you need for civil nuclear. It's up to 60%. They're probably a week away from having industrial grade bomb making material.
A week away. All right. So does that mean the war is starting in less than a week?
Well, when was this? Let me remember. This is from Sky News
3 days ago.
It might have been the day before.
We got 4 days, guys. We got 3 to 4 days tops before this war is on.
Buy your toilet paper! I don't know why, but that's being the first thing that goes is always funny to me.
Yeah, because when the bombs drop, you're really going to be worried about wiping your ass. Yeah.
Well,
People probably shitting themselves.
Okay. Touche.
Yeah, if Russia gets involved, then definitely buy your toilet paper then. So
why are they global supplier of toilet paper?
Yeah, that's right.
They're going to sanction our toilet paper.
No, it's for the actual ICBMs.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the exact quote after the 12-day war? Wasn't it that we bombed it into oblivion? So
Yeah.
oblivion just means you're back on your feet in a week?
Yeah, oblivion means 3 or 4 months. We bought ourselves about 3 or 4 months. Yeah, it's
Cool.
And what's funny is at the time I was so hesitant to be like, but couldn't they just rebuild it? I thought that. You know what I mean? Because it's not like you killed all the people there, and that's really what makes this whole thing happen is material and knowledge and individuals that have that knowledge.
Yeah.
And they did kill quite a few scientists, but it's a big freaking country.
Yeah.
And they have this thing called books and computers where you can teach
Everything's
new people
computer.
things.
Everything's computer.
They have computers there. So this is not Afghanistan. I can't emphasize enough.
I thought
Iran is not Afghanistan. It's the 2 different countries.
I don't even want to say it. I'm not going to say it.
This just made me think of when Ted Cruz did Tucker, and Tucker asked him how many people are in Iran, and he just didn't know.
Yeah, right.
It's like, oh, that's good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, just a gross underestimation of their capability to bounce back, I would say. I mean, it's not like they're not used to this kind of thing happening. They've rebuilt how many times now?
Yeah.
I mean, they've been 5 minutes from having nuclear weapons 45
so
times.
Long.
Yeah. It is interesting how
They're
the
Sisyphus.
chutzpah Yeah, the Sisyphean task. Well, you
carry that fucking boulder out there. You get so close, and then it just crumbles back.
Just rolling that nuclear missile uphill.
Yeah.
But we've only struck them like once, and Israel's done it a couple times in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But and at one time in Iraq, but I just once in Iran, I think. But I'm still left with the curiosity of, imagine that you're these guys and you have the chutzpah to just every day for 30 years say they're a week away from a nuclear weapon. And then at no point does incredulity creep into your brain and like undermine you in any way.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's actually impressive. You got to like appreciate the commitment to the game
you do.
that these guys have.
You absolutely do. You know what? This is perfectly analogous to the climate change narrative of like the world's going to end in 5 years. Every 5 years, they just bump it out another 5 years.
Yeah.
If you thought that was ridiculous, you can think this was ridiculous too.
It's also okay to think that.
Yeah.
The other side of that is the marshalling of evidence by Witkoff is also interesting, right? Because the 60% thing. And I just want to remind everybody this. We've covered it before, but we've got a larger audience now. So I just to bring in the new people into some of this, and just to remind you, because we're going to be discussing this quite a bit, especially if we go to war. In the JCPOA, which was Obama's original Iran deal, there was a contingency of if someone pulls out, if the other side is not faithful in the marriage and they pull out.
Continue.
Of the intercourse that we're doing with each other's countries.
Okay.
Yeah. If in the process of doing that, of once you've sealed the deal with, and then someone pulls out after it's been consummated, right? You've signed the deal. It's been ratified.
Yeah.
Once that's done, there's a contingency that says now you, Iran, are allowed to refine up to 60%. Why is that in the deal?
So they can have civilian nuclear?
No, you don't need 60% to do civilian nuclear.
I thought that's what Witkoff just said.
No, well, he's saying they're going way above that.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right? So think of 100% as weapons grade. Like 3%, 2% is industrial. Right? He said industrial. What he meant was military.
Yes.
People are giving him a hard time about that.
Weapons grade.
He just misspoke. Just everyone relax about that. That's not the important part. The important part is the manipulation of the historical timeline to make what they were contractually said they could do has been turned into evidence that they're doing something that was in the contract in the first place to bring you back to the table to negotiate them with. Right? That was the point. That's why Iran had it in the contract. They said, if you no longer recognize the deal, and try not to use the word pull out because I don't want you to
I'm fine
to lose it. Okay.
I didn't lose anything. Only when you said consummate.
That they had that, they could do that without breaking the deal. In fact, even as they were doing that, all the other member states of Europe and across the Middle East that were also in the JCPOA did not find them out of compliance at that point. Why? The reason why that's there is so that they could bring America back to get us back in the deal so we wouldn't sanction them to death.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they had the 60%.
Makes sense.
The marshaling of that is propaganda. When you take something that you agreed to and you turn it into evidence that they're doing something wrong, that's propaganda. You're just lying to people.
Yeah.
So, yes, there you go. That's Witkoff. And the other one.
What we did in Iraq.
What's that?
Oh, we did in Iraq? Or didn't we help Saddam get...
Oh, yeah. Well, we did. Yes. Yeah. We did. We gave Saddam chemical weapons to use against Iran. And then he used it against the Kurds. And we're like, hey.
He has chemical weapons.
He has chemical weapons. Those count as weapons of mass destruction, I guess, even though the case for weapons of mass destruction was around aluminum tubes meant for ballistic missiles to deliver a nuclear warhead. Right. That's what was the first claim, and then they backed that off. They moved the goalpost back to, back in the 90s, he used chemical weapons against the Kurds, and therefore we think that he might still have some. And then we did find some old chemical weapons while there. And then, of course, the Mark Levins and the Glenn Becks of the world said, I told you so, they had weapons of mass destruction, when that was never the actual standard.
Right.
The standard was a nuclear weapon.
Right.
And then on top of that, we gave those to them. Yeah. You hate that shit. Sorry.
Gonna need a clip of that.
Moment of
later,
weakness. Moment of weakness. All right. So Marco Rubio's case is on the next point, on the non-nuclear material point, I think is interesting because he does unpack it more than the president did in the State of the Union and then J.D. Vance did.
The other thing I would point you to, however, is that Iran possesses a very large number of ballistic missiles, particularly short-range ballistic missiles that threaten the United States and our bases in the region and our partners in the region. And all of our bases in the UAE, in Qatar, in Bahrain. And they also possess naval assets that threaten shipping and try to threaten the U.S. Navy. So I want everybody to understand that, and beyond just the nuclear program, they possess these conventional weapons that are solely designed to attack America and attack Americans.
Yeah. The only reason you have a military is to attack America. Now just imagine this. Okay, so I own a gun, and you're my neighbor, and you own a gun.
Sure.
And I come over and say, you have to give me your gun. And you say, why? And I say, because your gun could shoot me. And if you don't give me your gun, I'm going to shoot you. And then you say, that's why I own a gun.
Yeah.
That's diplomacy? That's diplomatic language? You are a government that isn't under control of our government. So give up everything and become under control of our government, or we'll go to war with you. That's the moment we're in. That's what I mean is like the price is too high. Is with statements like that, if you're Iran and you don't want to be a vassal state and you just want to have your own thing, don't get me wrong, they do terrible things. They're a government. I am a very conservative person. I am a northwestern Montana conservative libertarian type. I don't want to see any government. I hate them all. They're all bad. But if it's so irrational to have the world's largest hyperpower with a gazillion nuclear weapons that could shoot anyone on the planet say, how dare you have ballistic missiles that can go about 3,000 kilometers, right? In order for their kilometers, and we almost played a Ben Shapiro one.
Perfect striking distance for America.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. That is 1/3 the distance they need. They need to triple their current distance in order to get to the United States. I already did the math. So in this, if you notice his phrasing is interesting because this is another great propaganda phrasing. The USA, comma, and our bases. If you're not paying attention, he can get away with saying like, well, what I meant was American military bases in the Middle East. But what any irrational person heard was the continental United States where Americans live.
Right.
And when he says our allies, what does he mean? He's not talking about Qatar. He's not talking about the Saudi Arabia because they also have ballistic missiles. And they have reasons to hate each other. They have like long dogmatic reasons why they would be regional rivals if we weren't Saudi Arabia's military presence when they're not committing a genocide. And our bases, right? So then he gets the cover. He gets to play both ways. He gets to give you the intimation that they can reach America when they have to increase their range, their current range by 3 times. That means you need to shoot into the atmosphere and then re-enter the atmosphere. They're not capable of that. They don't have the material science technology to do that. They can't do it with their space program. That's one of the problems with their space program.
Is it that much easier to enrich uranium than it is to shield something so that it can exit and then re-enter the atmosphere?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why uranium was in the 1930s, and the space program that was quite successful was in the 1970s. And even then, only a very small amount of the rocket was reusable, all the way into the late 1980s with the remember the program where you're like got a spaceship that like flies back in?
Yeah, the space shuttle.
Yeah, the space shuttle. And even then, that had to be changed out real frequently. Mm-hmm. Only really until very recently have we had fully reusable rockets for that very purpose, because it was too expensive to have all the rockets be that reusable. Right. And so, and not just that, the material science progressed, the automation progressed, all the things that mattered progressed to the point where we could, and SpaceX and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Everyone knows that story.
But when they're sanctioned from doing business with anybody in the world practically, except for, I guess, Russia and China.
Yeah.
Really hard to develop technology that is on par with what we can do.
Right. And another part of this is it's the global positioning, it's the telemetry. You have to account for a lot of different variables. You have to account for the weather. You have to account for so many things that matter when trying to shoot something around the world. We kind of take it for granted in our high-tech society. Second to that, you have to test it. Like, think about it for a minute. SpaceX, how many rockets failed before they finally got a reusable rocket that was functional?
I don't even know. A lot.
They can't fail once. Think about it. If you're Iran and you develop an intercontinental ballistic missile that's going to reach America, after 30 years of propaganda saying you have something you don't, and then you come out with it, you're just signing your death warrant. At that point, if you like fire it off and it misses, you get one shot. You're an Eminem song. You got one shot to capture it. You let it slip.
Do not miss your chance to blow up DC.
But you see what I mean? Like, that is kind of just the idea that they could just do that out of nowhere or do that soon. He doesn't intimate that clearly what the time horizon we're talking about of this capability reaching the United States, because he doesn't want to do that because he knows how stupid it is. But Ben Shapiro, in another clip that we're not going to play, he basically says like, "Oh, they could just do that any week now." I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's a good impression.
Yeah, thank you. And Mark Levin had something very similar. They're going to bomb Kansas, that sort of thing.
Why Kansas?
Well, it's always Kansas because that's good American heartland. We don't care if they blow up DC. Who gives a shit?
That's where Superman's from.
Exactly.
Oh my God. That is good propaganda. Kansas, I hope you're listening. Hope you guys like this show. Let us know in the comments if you're from Kansas.
Yeah. So in the State of the Union, Trump kind of makes his case about Iran not having a nuclear weapon, all that kind of stuff. And then remember last time when this happened, and long-term viewers remember this, I made the case that there's some very subtle signaling from the neocons about a regime change, that was the real goal back in 2025. And with that, my point was there is an effort to do regime change. And I want to play this quote from Donald Trump that I think is interesting from that year about regime change with Iran, because I think it's an important pivot point that there are forces that want to persuade us to get there, and there are forces that are trying to be more restrained and more narrow. So hopefully this is an indicator that Donald Trump is still in this position, but this is why people voted for him, is stuff like this.
Tanks running around.
What's going to happen to Iran with you by the end of your administration? I'm not asking
I would like to see Iran be very successful. The only thing is they can't have a nuclear weapon.
Are you okay with the same administration and way of governing stays, or would you like to see it go back to the 70s when Shah's was running it and Iran was one of the top 3 countries in tourism?
We can't get totally involved in all that. We can't run ourselves. Let's face it.
Sure.
Patrick, we can't run ourselves.
You put sanctions, the people are going to turn and flip on them. It's not going to be a
tanks running.
Yeah, see, that was an interesting intimation from Patrick Ben-David there, right? But sanction on the people will rise up and overthrow their own government, and we'll be greeted as liberators. Yeah, a lot of that.
We
going
heard
around.
that before.
A lot of that going around again, and it's interesting how few people seem to be noticing that.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I'm just going to skip ahead here to something. I want to get into this particular rhetoric, keeping this in mind from the administration last year about where we're at. And this lady on Piers Morgan, I already had it up. Her manipulation of language, and especially contrasted with what Trump did there, to where this faction of the American interventionist is, because this is what's happening right now. I mean, the polling on this is really, really not good for the interventionist side. 75 to 85% opposed, right? The amount of strongly opposed is obviously always a fraction of that. A lot of people leaning against. A lot of people don't know that much about it. I've been surprised, and one of the reasons why we covered like the status of the buildup is because a lot of people don't seem to be aware, according to public polling, that there's a buildup happening.
Yeah.
So this lady kind of articulates, I think, some interesting new angles for argumentation that I just have to respond to because it's too good.
She says we're way past buildup. We're already in it.
Exactly. Here, let me increase the volume just a bit here.
Been in it.
So the way that we have to frame this and the way that we have to look at it, Pierce, is that right now we are in a forever war with the Islamic regime. And what happened is back in 1979.
Wait, we got to pause there. Okay, so
what's going on back there?
She's Goldie.
Yeah, I was looking at that too.
Okay. Oh, let me explain. Okay, so one. So guess who built British Petroleum? Right? And there's home. Wait. There's the shape of Iran.
Okay.
I don't know why she probably lives in Canada.
Okay.
I guess. And then here's the flag of the Shah.
Okay.
This is the ancient Zoroastrian symbol.
Okay.
I think this is some more ancient Zoroastrian stuff. I don't know about that, and I'm not sure what that is.
Okay.
Also Zoroastrian right there. Yeah.
And what is that?
Zoroaster?
Yeah.
Oh man, Ahura Mazda was one of the first, not quite monotheistic, but like Zeus-like deities of the Middle East.
Oh, okay.
Very ancient religion, and a fire religion that has a lot of different metaphors that go very far back across and influences across many other religions.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's going to be a deep dive.
It's it's hugely important religion in the history of religions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I did a lot of religious studies when I was in college.
I was going to say that's not my field of expertise if I had one.
Yeah.
But anyway.
You got one.
Not to distract from what she said though. I want you to comment on her first statement here.
Yeah. Forever Wars. It was good that we hit on the aesthetics first though. And do we want to check her fit first? Like, is that green working with all the gold? I don't know.
I think it is. It's representing, the flag is kind of cut off where the green would be, so she's kind of wrapping that in.
Okay. Got it.
Tracks.
Right.
Yeah. Good
checked in. You're welcome, Hannah. All right, so Forever Wars. We are in a forever war with Iran.
No, she said with the Islamic regime, right?
Yes, with these. You're right. She makes a very careful distinction that you'll find in the rest of this between Iran, meaning the Iranian people, and the Iranian regime, as if they had nothing to do with the Iranian regime coming to power. She's going to blame it on Jimmy Carter in a minute. But keeping on that, Forever War meant one thing yesterday, and today, according to Goldie Damar, it now means something completely different. And this is the propaganda language to obviously watch out for.
Yeah. How are you distinguishing them? Because yesterday, Forever War was, Afghanistan.
Afghanistan being being occupied by the United States, where we spilt our blood and treasure for no goddamn reason whatsoever.
For 20 years.
Friggin' Osama bin Laden was in Pakistan the whole goddamn time. And we just like, oh shit, whoops. We got to build some schools first. Make sure Halliburton gets their taste. Stay salty. All right. So she's making the case that that wasn't a forever war. The real forever war was the fact that in 1979, a Islamic dictatorship was installed in Iran through a popular uprising.
A genuine one? Or a color revolution?
It's always hard to say, right? These are difficult things to qualify, right? It's difficult to know. I mean, I would say Maidan had popularity, even though it was a color revolution. That's what you do as an intelligence agency. You come alongside a faction and you manipulate it, right? And there's been arguments about this for every revolution, always and forever. The Bolshevik revolution, there's some people think there's some interesting arguments to suggest that the British, MI6, and their special ops people were kind of behind that in very important ways.
Yeah.
For reasons. The question is and one of the things that happens earlier in this is that General Wesley Clark is on here, and he makes the case that Carter had maybe an intelligence op to overthrow the Shah and put in potentially someone else, and then it kind of backfired and it ended up going to the imams, right? The new religious caliphate. So rather than a more liberal person overthrowing and installing like a democracy again, like Mossadegh, but prior to that. And in case we're missing some people, the history of Iran, really simple. They institute democracy under a king. Eventually, the king is kind of has this problem with this rising democratic figure named Mossadegh. Mossadegh gets into power in this democratic transition, and he wants to nationalize their oil supply. BP, British Petroleum, had all of that stuff. They were using that to fuel themselves throughout World War I and World War II. Not World War I, sorry. After World War I, going into World War II, because I think the infrastructure was built during the Ottoman Empire, but leave that aside. Way back in 1901, we're talking about is when this deal's cut, right? When they are very primitive province. After the overfall of the Ottoman Empire and their nationhood and all these other things, they say, wait a minute, we're only getting like 10% of the profits here. I can't remember exactly what the figure is. Might have been 30%. But they say, like, let's renegotiate this deal. And basically British Petroleum says, you're nationalizing it. And then it becomes this big international snafu. They overthrow the democracy and reinstall the Shah, a new power of the monarchy into power, and then the Shah runs the country, and then they are overthrown by Mossadegh. Right. This overthrowing is the classic case by sorry, they didn't overthrow by Mossadegh. I said that. Overthrew by the imams, basically the Shiite religious dictatorship that is the government as it is now. Yeah. Now they do have a parliament, they have elections, they have all these stuff, but over all of that is like this religious figure. That is the religious figure for all of Shiite Islam. Right? So when they say Ayatollah Khamenei, that's who that guy is. They also have a president who runs the country.
Right.
So it's kind of think about like if America, you had Donald Trump and over him was just like
the Pope,
Billy Graham or something. Yeah, like something hyper American specific.
Yeah.
Right. And then would also like have interesting larger efforts. Like the fact that we had a Billy Graham as our ultimate religious ruler would give us a little bit more credence with another country that was also a follower of Billy Graham. So if you overthrow the Shah, or not overthrow the Shah, if you reinstall the Shah, which is what this chick wants to do, I suspect, and you overthrow the imams, like all the religious leaders underneath him of Ayatollah Khamenei, you now have this problem of all the other Shiites in the region now hate your fucking guts, right? Because you just, especially if you murder them, right? You just killed their equivalent of the Pope. Right? Problem.
Yeah, super huge problem.
Yeah. So anyway, she's going to tell her revised history, but I want to know, so like her case is that forever war doesn't mean what we all thought it meant 2 days ago. It means the fact that we have an antagonistic relationship with another country. That's what she means. Right? Well, you're not allowed to do that.
Well, and it seems like her definition sort of implies that the forever war is not the same as Afghanistan, where we have boots on the ground for 20 years and we spend a bunch of money, but it's maybe more a component of this clandestine operation of meddling in their political affairs. And probably, I mean, obviously not just the United States, but the British at that time with, you know, BP and all that, all the rationale behind why, you know, they overthrew Mossadegh. It's this like, it's behind the curtain kind of thing, like pulling the strings forever war, not so much an overt kinetic forever war.
Yeah. I can
kind of see both being true.
That shift I don't like. I can understand what you're saying, and you're doing a good job still manning her, and it's totally fair. My point is that forever war meant costly quagmire that kills our country.
Yeah.
What she's saying is country exists that doesn't like us and doesn't submit to our demand requests, because that's function what's really happening, right? Generally, Wesley Clark in this, and all the war hawks continually say, well, Iran put in roadside bombs in Iraq, right? And there's this whole argument that Iran was giving the Shiite militias in Iraq roadside bombs to use. The challenge with that is that appears to be wartime propaganda. There's a good case opposed to that. And that is when the detail work was done, after the claims of, well, this is obviously coming from Iran, was over, and then they went back and looked at it with more careful eyes and actual third-party reporters, what they discovered was the Shiite militias were mostly building them in Iran. Now, would that, maybe there was a GRC spy in there somewhere? I don't know, maybe. Could it be a Revolutionary Guard member snuck across the board and was teaching them how to build bombs? Very possible.
But they were being built in Iraq.
In Iraq.
Okay, gotcha.
By Shiites in Iraq.
Gotcha.
And then the story gets very complicated from there. I recommend Scott Horton's book, Enough Already, Time to End the War on Terror. It's an excellent book that dives in and documents this very carefully. I mean, it's very richly documented that these were built mostly, almost universally. We're talking 99% as far as we can tell. Not just giving it some margin for error, right? In Iraq by Shiites. And even then, if it was informed by the GRC or something like that, that's just spy game shit. We do that all the time. We can't tell other people they can't do it because we have the largest one in the world, and we're doing it constantly, everywhere. Every election, on every country in the entire planet is influenced by our government, by our intelligence services. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I don't think you're wrong.
Someone tell me I'm wrong, because that's the insanity. Is like we're like, how dare you, sir?
Well, that's the narrative of this whole thing. Is how dare you, sir?
Yeah.
From the U.S. to Iran in this case, but everyone else really.
Right. And you can, it's easy. And like she does a good job differentiating the Iranian government from the Iranian people. And I mean that the same way. My government does that. Not Iowans, Kansas, not people in Kansans, Cornhuskers or whatever they're called.
I think that'd be Nebraska, but
exactly.
Close enough for flyover state country.
That's Illinois. Can't remember Kansas.
Jayhawks.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Sure. I just saying, I'm not talking about the American people. What I'm talking about is our government and the hegemony and what it does and how it distracts from America.
Yeah.
Anyways, let me complete because she does have some more brand new rhetoric, brand new propaganda.
It was Jimmy Carter and the Democrats that backed the Ayatollah. And that's what basically led to the Islamic coup d'etat. And so right now, Iran is unfortunately a failed state. And so what Iranians...
That's a new one. A failed state is a state that we don't like. A failed state 2 days ago meant a state that doesn't have a clear monopoly of force state that could then govern the people and institute order.
Like a fallen government.
Yes.
Like what happened in, let's say, Saudi or Syria, I would say,
Syria,
after Bashar al-Assad, right? Power vacuum kind of situation.
Yes.
Failed state.
Yeah, failed state. I mean, and now do they have established monopoly of force, blah, blah, blah. Syria has a very interesting story there because they were always very decentralized. Another one is Somalia, where they've gone without a centralized government for a very long time. They have the whole South Sudan thing, all these other things.
Yeah.
The crumbling states or failed states are a feature, that's not the right word, is a long-standing problem within international politics and what to do about it.
Yeah.
And so now she's just saying, it doesn't mean that anymore. It means state I don't like.
They're trying to do is, we're trying to rectify the mistake. Is regime change the goal? 100%. Absolutely. We Iranians, we have been trying to fix Jimmy Carter's mistake since 1979.
And be clear here, it isn't clear to me. So there's two cases on this. Jimmy Carter's mistake could mean he didn't declare war with Iran right after the Iranian Revolution, or it could mean the CIA op that didn't work.
That it just is being blamed on Jimmy Carter.
Well, no.
CIA op.
Yeah, so I don't know if the CIA op is true. This claim is true, but Wesley Carpson's intimated. And there was this idea that so you got two overthrowing, right? You had the first one, which is the overthrow of the democratically elected government of Mossadegh to install the Shah, and another one to uninstall the Shah and install some other democratic leader. But in that process, the Iranian Revolution takes a religious bent and then Ayatollah takes power. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're saying that second one was a mistake because they tried to do the thing to install someone democratic and we want the Shah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
This is the first time since the Islamic regime took over that we actually have a United States president who is standing with the Iranian people, recognizing full well that U.S. and Iranian interests are aligned right now. And by Iranian, I mean the Iranian people. I don't mean the Islamic regime that's occupying us. Because, as the general said, prior to 1979, Iran and the United States were allies. So right now, the country is currently in that failed state situation. And I can say that, Iranians in occupied Iran are incredibly grateful that the United States is coming to help liberate them.
If they're a failed state and they're a week away from having nukes, that's pretty impressive. I'd like to see what they can do while they are not a failed state.
Pretty successful for a failed state.
Yeah, goddamn, they really have their shit together for a failed state.
It has a new meaning. Failed state doesn't mean there isn't a monopoly of force. Failed state means a government we don't like. That's the problem. That's why you've misunderstood.
And we will be greeted as liberators when we show up there to liberate the people.
That's the thing that killed me, man.
Yeah.
Listen to that. I was the eye rolls and I passed out. It was insane.
Came to in a pile of black pills.
Yeah. Well, just look, Pierce has got to get his bags. I get it. And I'm glad that he has a show, and I love his show, actually. It gets crazy sometimes, but it is a important thing to get people in dialogue with each other like this.
For sure.
So that's a lot to contend with. They've got a lot of propaganda going on, a lot of attempts to control our minds by manipulating language in this way. And in the pursuit of this, I have to recognize that there's been one force there are many forces that are pushing back. And that's encouraging. 2002, there was not that much pushback, right?
No.
And it is interesting, when I was in college, I would take philosophy programs, and there was actually a class called Philosophy of Media. And one of those was actually talking about culture of media and how media works in our society. And it's the philosophy around its role. And I remember, and this is 2008, 9, 10, 11. And in that time period, there was a lot of talk of, man, did we screw up the Iraq war something terrible? We let the president lie to us, and we didn't question about anything. And man, we heard from the intelligence community, and we just didn't do anything when they lied to us. We didn't question. We didn't ask for the evidence. We didn't back check our resources. We didn't fact check their claims. And we're never going to make that mistake again. And it's interesting to watch so much of the media that's spent so long giving Donald Trump such a hard time about every tiny little thing. And when it comes to Iran, that just seems to just dissipate. It just goes away. It's Fugazi. It's not there anymore. What happened to the media? They're capitulating on this. They don't seem to care. They're not running anything about it. They're not questioning much of anything, in my opinion.
It's almost as if they're largely controlled by a nation that may benefit from such things.
I was thinking that.
It's fair. You guys are keeping me honest. But I don't know. I don't know what the reason is. But that seems to be what's happening. And in the midst of that, we do have this podcasting scene, this populist conservative, true MAGA, true American first sphere that is. It's one thing to do it from like a far left progressive point of view, but to do it within the regime of where your party's in power, that takes even more courage. And so I want to recognize and just play this Tucker Carlson clip because I think it's such a white pill amongst all of this to end things on. Because as much as there's all these manipulations, in the end, truth is treason in an empire of lies. But in the end, the truth always wins out. Because at the end of the day, all the bullets in the world have no power compared to the power of ideas and someone saying something true with faith and integrity. That's just true. And Tucker Carlson really represents that in this moment. His interview with Mike Huckabee was devastating. I wanted to do a whole podcast on it, but it was just like everyone did it and it wasn't time. And like, man, in this moment, he's taking some of the best stances and doing some of the best work. 100%.
Legacy building stuff, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, here we go.
Everybody knows the only reason we're having this war is because Israel wants it. This is their last chance, they believe. This presidency is the last presidency where they're going to have unequivocal bipartisan support. Period. You can't primary every Thomas Massey, and there's a whole army of them coming at some point because everyone can see what's going on. And you can shut down X, and you can just shut down the internet. You can be like Great Britain and arrest people who protest Israel, but attitudes are not going to revert to what they were 5 years ago. Sorry. And they know this. So this is their last chance. What's so amazing is that Israel, which at least is acting in what it perceives to be its own national interest, is joined by its shills in the United States, of course. But really, its only other ally in this is the American news media, whose job it is to tell you the truth and inform you as to what's happening, to tell you, hey, wake up. The world could be changing, and it's going to affect you and your family. That's their job. And instead, they've been lulling you to sleep with the same variety of transparent lies and propaganda.
So I just want to encourage everybody that right now is candidate filing season. This is, it's February, late February. Most places end sometime in March to early April. So whatever state you're in, if you want to be the next Thomas Massey coming up, it requires people. It requires individuals who are willing to do it. At the end of the day, we can't change the trajectory of the country if we don't have different people in pursuit of the power capable of doing that. And if that's not your bag of tea, maybe you don't want to talk for a living, and I understand that desire. Be the person that speaks up and holds their person accountable. There's going to be town halls all across this country as primary season starts to ramp up. If you show up and ask questions. Doesn't matter if there's someone else in the race. Get a phone. Record yourself asking an important question about why you didn't vote for the discharge petition for the Epstein files. Why didn't you vote for the discharge petition on the War Powers Resolution? Why didn't you take a stand for the Constitution and the just rule of Congress? If people are doing that, we could see a substantial difference in the way this war might be waged or even happened in the first place.
Well said. Well said.
Thanks.
On that note, friends, thanks so much for watching this evening, or whenever you happen to be watching this. It's evening here. We appreciate you very much. If you would like to get involved in the conversation, jump into the Discord. The link is in the description below this video. We have great times there, lots of different conversations going on all the time. On behalf of David Rand and Bennett, live from Valhalla, I'm Joe Sheehan. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Human Reaction. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you want to become a member and support the show financially, check out humanreactionpod.com. And remember,
Truth is treason in an empire of lies, but in the end, the truth always wins out.